Moo? Moo? Oh no, he already dropped in. What do you think you're doing? Fear's a terrible thing, and nothing feels quite as debilitating as standing at the foot of a mountain you can't see the top of, but I love a good challenge. Cooperative games are my bread and butter. Games are just a lot more fun with company, and I've always had a soft spot for stress tests and team building. When faced with a wall, a good team can find a way over, under, or around it, and when those walls keep spitting us back out, a good team is more likely to persevere than a single player ever would, and the feeling of overcoming challenge after challenge with your friends at your sides cannot be beat. This shit is hard as nails. It can be one of the most frustrating gameplay loops to get a grip on, but it's still a hell of a good time. And if you're willing to wade through the grime, get your hands a bit muddy, and sink in the blood and sweat a bit, you'll quickly find your way up the food chain. This place is full of nasties, but we're the scariest thing down here. I'm Moo, I'm new, and this is GTFO. So, I'd ask what rundown we're playing, but it looks like you're already on it. GTFO's levels are separated into rundowns, each rundown consisting of a bunch of missions scaling in difficulty from A to D and sometimes E. Each rundown has a different reputation, and while some like Rundown 3 are quick and easy, others like Rundown 5 are hell on earth. Well, right now we're trying to introduce the game. Which means I made the right call. Rundown 6 is the place to be. Why not Rundown 1? Because Rundown 1's a relic. I think, with its really narrow focus and higher enemy density, it makes for a solid second or third outing, but its missions aren't all that diverse or fun. Definitely doesn't make a good first impression. Okay, and of course I agree with you, but shouldn't we be taking this in order? Absolutely not. If we go from R1 to R7, the difficulty is going to be all over the place. And when the game's as mentally and mechanically taxing as GTFO, you want to make sure you get the difficulty curve right. That means R3 or R6, and R6 introduces a lot more relevant challenges with a lot better variety. Then R6 it is. The objectives from mission to mission do change, and they can be pretty varied, but what they ultimately boil down to is dropping in, completing an objective, sneaking and scavenging your way there through hordes of sleeping enemies, and getting out of dodge. That's not what the acronym stands for. The A1 missions are all straightforward. Either find something or take something to some other zone, go into a side zone to find a key, complete a short alarm and a long alarm, and escape. R6A1 is no different, and it sets a good standard. The key to move forward is in one of the two side zones, and if we get it right, we only have to deal with enemies rushing us from one direction, while we have to worry about two if we get it wrong. That's where terminals come in handy. We already know we're looking for a key, so typing list key should give us the ID, and if we type query and the key name, it'll tell us what zone it's in. Saves us a bit of headache. And the quest for the key gives us a smooth introduction to stealth. This is a sleeper. Be it a striker or a shooter, they all go pop with a nice crack to the head. Stealth centers around assessing threats and either clearing rooms or passing them by. Sleepers come in a lot of different varieties, with some being a lot scarier than others, but the rules of engagement are always the same. Try not to wake them up, and if you have to, try and trim off as much of the fat as possible before you bust out the guns. This is one of the first big roadblocks. The combination of the sleeper's unsettling and inconvenient listening cycles, as well as the looming uncertainty that even if you get this takedown right, everything could still go to hell is, hard to deal with when you're first starting out. But that's why we're here. Sleepers have 4 stages of awareness: sleeping, listening, pulsing, and awake. Sleeping sleepers are completely inactive and you can do anything but sprint or make a loud noise without waking them up. When they're listening, that's usually when players will put on the brakes. Stealth really does kind of boil down to a long and painstaking game of red light, green light, but you don't have to stop until they're throbbing. No matter what, sleepers are stuck in stage 2 until the animation's finished. That gives you about a 2-second window of unrestricted movement so long as you stop once they start pulsing. Because if anyone's still moving while they're pulsing, they're going to wake up. So if you hit stage 3, you either whack them or freeze. There's a lot of uncertainty that comes with the sleeper that isn't sleeping anymore. And while some are content to sit and wait for you to close in on them, they're more likely to either chip you for some of your health or scream, which immediately wakes up any sleeping enemies left in the room. And even in difficult situations, it's best to keep a level head if you don't want that happening. Here we have 4 enemies in a not too far proximity from each other. We're going to start with the one that's furthest away and slowly work our way to the pair sitting over here. The crouching one is harder to get an angle on, so we use a full charge for him, and even though the other one is so close that it'll immediately wake up after hearing me whack his buddy, a tap is all you really need to down a little sleeper so long as you hit him in the back of the head. Most enemies have a damage multiplier if they take damage from behind, and some take even more if you hit them in the head. Knowing weak points and having the discipline to aim for them will do wonders for saving you resources in the long run, be it health or ammo. And when the guns are tucked away, you'll find that careful play can save you just as much. Hey! What are you doing? Pushing in. It's just 6 of them. Just 6 of them, he says. That was a golden opportunity to set up a long lesson on dense solo takedowns, and you just passed it up. I figured I could save on time with a little down payment of health, and I took it. 5% of my health isn't enough to make me slow things down. Yeah, well, what about 40? Looks like that's doing a pretty good job. I'm not being patient. I'm an ambush predator, and I can't get close now that it's at the end of its listening animation. Giants are not scary. They soak up bullets like a sponge, and have enough damage to lay you flat if you aren't careful. Then be careful. When there's just one of them, no thanks. Giants also take massively multiplied damage to the back of the head, and can be staggered with fully charged bats and charged hits to the limbs. After a good hit to the back, a giant usually goes down pretty easily, so long as there's not too much of a gap on the follow-up. But there is a surefire way to keep yourself safe when trying to kill a giant. Just get behind them and shoot. But that's resources wasted on something you could have handled without them. That's resources spent on solving a problem in the lowest risk way possible. It's only a waste if the shortage gets us killed later. Until then, fair game. You still shouldn't be using ammo before a big alarm. I'd hardly call a class 3 alarm big. Look, I'll get it set up and run it. You just go ahead and talk the audience through what's happening. Yeah, fine. Alarms can be pretty rough, especially depending on the tile set you're forced to do them on. When an alarm is activated, it'll start spreading out scans across the floor that a player needs to stand on to complete. Each class of an alarm refers to the rounds of scans you need to complete for the alarm to end, and all the while enemies are going to be spawning to attack you, signaled by the loud. Before you pull it, you typically want to set up some defenses. Sentry guns are self-explanatory. They're going to try and break down those doors to get into the room and attack you, so you put the gun down facing the door. You can also put a trip mine on those doors to explode on the pack of enemies that are gathering up to bang on it. Those two are the cornerstone tools of fighting back waves, but it's up to the players to finish their scans, stay alive, and clear out any stragglers once the alarm's finally over. GTFO will always reward a good plan and taking things deliberately. Whether you play slow and surgically or fast and loose, you're going to have a better time once you get comfortable and start making use of those fundamentals. An easy mission like this is a perfect playground in the otherwise terrifying halls of the complex, and using the earlier missions as sandboxes to sharpen your skills is absolutely worthwhile. That was weird. And now I'm here. That's fine. 2 heads are better than 1. We're still only 1 head, and what difference does it make now that I'm here? We were both doing commentary anyways. The difference is now these goons have to deal with the full package and not just me. Yeah, I guess, but you're still going to be the one with the hammer. Looks like 5 enemies scattered around in a P shape. The room has a slightly uneven altitude, so we'll start at the stem and push up along the crest. The B-tier missions are where you really start to get your wings. Longer stretches, more complex objectives, denser rooms, higher threat levels, and a few new hurdles to spice things up. This is a scout. It's just another enemy. An important enemy that we should definitely discuss in detail. The more attention we give them, the more we psych out the players. To my spear and sledgehammer savants, a fully charged hit to the head will kill, and to the lesser melee weapon enjoyers, you gotta hit it in the back of the head. So I'd suggest sticking to your secondary weapons. Anything that looks like it'd be sold in Texas should do with the headshot. Okay, I'm drawing the line. I agree that bloating up a problem isn't helpful, but pretending those things aren't problems is just as bad. Preparation and level-headedness are the key to victory, and naturally that means there are going to be things this game throws at you in order to sow as much chaos and panic as possible. A scout is one of those things. From the way it hobbles around to the scouts feel really gross to approach. They're taller than normal sleepers, and that becomes really apparent once you're right up close to one. There's just an initial layer of fear that comes with dealing with them, especially if your first encounter with one is blind, and that layer gets even thicker once you trigger one. When a scout is triggered, whether it by its feelers being tripped, you failing to kill it in a single hit, or any other unfortunate circumstance, the scout's gonna scream. When a scout screams, it wakes up everything in the area. Par for the course, but it also spawns a wave of enemies 2 rooms away from you, meaning you're going to be pincered, overrun, you could lose doors you might need later, and you might have to divide your attention and spend more resources in a panic just to pull out alive. One scout waking up isn't the end of the world, but there's a lot to consider when it comes to dealing with one, from the enemies in the room with it to the potential collateral that'd come if the wrong one wakes up. If you aren't confident, it is always better to just shoot the scout and fight the room instead of getting caught between the room and the wave the scout spawned. They're menacing and they can do some damage to your supplies, but getting the confidence to deal with them is one of the biggest game changers you can experience as a player. Oh hey, Seafoam. While they might not be the most dangerous things down here, there's not much better at sowing panic within your group like a scout waking up at a bad time. Where are all the giants at? Oh, never mind. And regardless of whether you're playing alone or with friends, scouts can prove themselves to be an obstacle no matter what conditions you encounter when in. Whoa, that giant wave dashed. Are you even paying attention to me? I'm not our audience, I don't have to. But you're distracting that audience. Because I don't want them to take this whole scout thing so seriously. GTFO is about recognizing threats for what they are, not what they hypothetically could be. That's how the monsters get you. But you absolutely have to account for that. Not if you're prepared. We might have left the launcher at home, but a good old-fashioned seafoam grenade is more than enough to lock down a problematic scout. It went through him. So it did. Well, so much for that demonstration. Follow the spaghetti in, charge up, and jump as you let it go. Works well enough, and again, I'll say that a lone scout is only potentially more dangerous than a giant, and a fair bit easier to kill without waking it up. But things do get hairy once other enemies are put into the mix. Like so. If any one of these enemies wakes up and screams before we kill the scout, we're suddenly in pretty deep water. If we're loud and shoot the scout, for example, the rest of the room wakes up and we still lose a bite out of our resources. But sitting out here in a different room isn't going to help us make a plan. There's a decent gap between the duo by the door and the first enemy we see close to the scout. So our first order of business is clearing these three out and setting up a nice enemy-free safe zone for us to maneuver around. The bio-tracker says that there's just one enemy between us and it, so we'll push forward, kill it, check bio, and confirm that the room's clogged further back. We respect the spaghetti hitbox and use the room's verticality as grace to move in, since most of the enemies are probably out of line of sight, and killing the scout is a much bigger deal than 5 little stragglers. Kill the scout, bag the key, run the alarm, get teleported to Nevada, and extract. I really do like B-tier missions, but they don't always have a whole lot of flavor. At their lowest, they're souped up A-tier missions, but at their best, they could be some of the most fun missions in the game. Some lean into the challenge, while others indulge in the variety, but they always tend to do so with some restraint and consideration for the player. Let me know. Unlike the C-tier missions? Unlike the C-tier missions. Smells like sweat and tears. This is more like it. We're talking harder stealth, longer alarms, tougher challenges, the whole shebang. The C-tier is usually where GTFO stops pulling its punches. No haymakers or power bombs yet, but nice, proper wrestling with the player. Alarms get more complex, requiring more extensive planning or a lot more resources in order to beat them safely. Here we have a few different directions enemies can spawn from, and presumably a few doors they can break down to get to us. We have to allocate mines and our trusty seafoam appropriately, and aim our sentry guns in ways we think will be helpful. Yeah, not like this one though. These alarms are here to grind your resources down, stress you out, and make softer teams second guess their chances of pulling through. But despite their length, they're overcome just like all the others, with preparation and or good honest play. Stealth's pretty similar in theory. It is an execution too. I'm counting 7 enemies here, no pods. We'll just start with the one closest to us. Want to wake up, but you have to accept that you're going to get chipped a bit in a situation like this. You've also got to accept that you might not kill one in the first swing, and both times you just got to do your best to make do. Sometimes the next step is simple, sometimes you need to be a bit more technical, but you'll pull through once you see the challenge for what it is instead of what it looks like. Insightful. You should try it sometime. And speaking of challenges, we've got an error alarm on our hands. A good old-fashioned doomsday timer. Scouts are more common, but error alarms are definitely a lot more stressful. There are no waves to defend against, just a constant trickle of enemies spawning in and chasing us down until we shut it off. It's almost cruel that a game as meticulous as GTFO asks us for speed and efficiency. Oh please, cruelty might as well be the name of the game, and compared to what's to come, this should be a cakewalk. We have 2 zones to go through, one of which requires us to find a key. We'll have enemies spawning behind us and enemies sleeping in the rooms. This is a test of pacing ourselves, because if we take it slow, we'll run ourselves out of juice, be it blood or bullets. And if we go too fast, we'll probably fall flat on our faces. Exactly. The first order of business is that key or a terminal. If we can ping the key, that'll cut our time spent digging around by more than half. That's a hybrid. More health than giants with both fast melee attacks and huge salvos of projectiles to fire our way. Fighting one without cover is pretty much a death sentence, and we're not exactly equipped to take them down efficiently. And there are 2 of them. Forget the number we're dealing with, the alarm's spawning them. We have less time to work than I thought we would. But no looking back now. The key's an F, come on. Now that we know where we're going, there's no point in taking it slow. Hackett has the bio-tracker and the bots ping a lot faster and further than players are allowed to, so if there were a scout, we'd see it. And it'd be a bit cruel of them to throw sleeping giants in here while we're forced to sprint through. Hey, Nu, keep your mouth shut. Shit. Alright, never mind. We're not looking too good. I know. Find the key. It's around here somewhere, and I'm hurrying. We're a little dry on ammo. Just make your shots count. Found it. Alright, let's... Yeah, that's smart. You can always trust your gut. We got the key. Terminal's on the other side of the door. And we're officially out of ammo. Put the hammer down, turn off the alarm first. Fine. We're right there at the end. I know it's the perfect time to get distracted, but please just finish the job while we're here. I'm doing it. Chill. And now I get to fight. R6-C1 is broken up into 3 legs, and while the first isn't necessarily the most dangerous, it's my vote for the most intense. The first challenge is always the least fun, but once it's done, you've got your foot in the door, and while tripping backwards makes it harder to get back up, pushing forward is a lot easier. Found it! Oh hey, this is all the same. You also found ammo, right? Yeah, don't worry about it. It's not like the first round is that dangerous anyways. Flyers are pretty easy to deal with, in few enough numbers. They're weak, easy to kill in a single shot, easy to hit, but they still shoot lasers that don't do a small amount of damage. Yeah, but that's what the revolver's for. Permanent solution to a temporary problem. Let's push on forward, making great progress. And we have plenty of ammo and foam for the upcoming alarm. Enough to lock down all the relevant doors and enough mines to place one on each of them. In a perfect world, we can finish these scans before the door comes down, and while obviously a one-man band with 3 bots isn't ideal when it comes to speed, we might still be able to salvage it if we hold our fire for just a bit. Never mind, but it's always worth a shot. Hey, don't get so down, 4275 ain't bad. But the assault rifle and the revolver aren't going to help us if we screw up this next part. Yeah, that's still a lot of giants. We have to sneak our way through, and naturally on our way back out too. I know, I'm trying, but the bots don't want to move despite being completely undetectable. Something about realism. Thankfully, all the giants are front-loaded, so we can maneuver around this big, dangerous room without any interruptions once we close in on the zone door. Yeah, good thing, too. I'd prefer to leave any fancy footwork out of this next part. Behind us is a room that's packed like a sardine tin with giants, and beyond an open door, we've got to make our way through 5 scouts. If they wake up, we probably wipe. And if we pull the giants, we definitely wipe. Do we have a plan? Nope, but I'm sure in the moment we'll think of something. All sitting here and dwelling on it'll do is put lines on our faces. It's in my expert opinion that stressful times call for action. Just leave it to me. The first one's out of position. Walk up, tap sprint to make it progress to stage 2 and send out its feelers, and once the feelers are out it'll be stuck in place, meaning unless your angle's off you should be able to sink a square hit on the head with any weapon. This sort of sequence is best left to spears and sledgehammers. After we force our way into the room, the rest of the clear becomes a delicate dance. 4 scouts separated by nothing but thick pillars. 3 scouts separated by nothing but thick pillars. That's progress, but the 3 are moving pretty close together. 2 of them are. The straggler over here should be pretty easy pickings. We can whack it and use our C-foam to desync the others and finish off the room with no BS this time. Don't swing at scouts from behind, kids. They have really, really craned necks. Where's the C-foam? Where's the C-foam? Piss. Well, that didn't go as planned. We've got a fight on our hands. The last thing we want is to shoot a bullet into the room of giants, and thankfully, since we aren't in the same room as them, none of the little sleepers will scream and wake them up. Which means it's on us if we have to deal with the rumbling. Let's find an angle where the turret can be blocked by a pillar and hold out. We still have to fight 30 or so enemies. Doable, but I'm not happy about it. That was supposed to be the big moment, but the last nail and the scouts aren't a big deal coffin. Sure, but we got something else out of it. I think the way we responded was a lot more impressive than taking the rooms out stealthily. Don't make it sound like I'm moping. Are you not? We made it through because we had a plan of action. The bots don't have a choice but to stick with me, and by extension, the plan. I don't panic because I've been through worse, and they can't panic. Sometimes you're just going to get punched in the gut, so you got to be able to take a deep breath and brace yourself. Push with your stomach, block with your hands, swerve to your side, anything but sitting there and taking it, or heaven forbid, leaning out of it. Sometimes you just got to plant your feet and fight, and most of the time, it won't be your choice. And a lot of the time, those fights don't give you much in terms of breaks. From a new level of stressful stealth section, straight to 2 back-to-back nail-biting gunfights. GTFO forces us to brave steeper challenges, knowing good and well that if we can't, we have no place moving on. Even the climax manages to lift itself on a pedestal compared to all the challenges before it. Speak for yourself, the 5 scout room will always be the main event of this level. But the crescendo is supposed to be the hardest part on both body and mind. But if we get sent back to the lobby here, we can restart knowing that we have what it takes to make it right back to the end. And while time-consuming it may be, it's hardly going to be as tiring. It's funny how that works. Creatives, am I right? We set the guns up on the stairs, drop as much foam as we can, and take packs until we're all coasting at around 80% on everything. Even if we know we can do it all again, coming all this way and failing is going to do a new kind of emotional damage in the moment, so let's not experience that. We've done all the preparation we can, meaning the only thing between us and success are our own skills and resources. And I don't think we've ever been more full on health and ammo. Then it's all on us, right? It doesn't matter what sort of challenges GTFO throws our way, because we're a living, thinking person with a sledgehammer and a gun, and we are without a doubt the scariest thing down here. I'm not taking it back. GTFO is a hardcore cooperative survival horror first-person shooter, and there's nothing else quite like it. It's hard, unforgivingly so, and demanding of you and your abilities at every level, but there's something for everyone's style. Maybe you've got the gunplay and can single-handedly air out any wave of enemies that comes your way. Maybe you're a bookkeeper and you've got what it takes to track each and every objective item and resource across the map once you get your mitts on a terminal. Maybe you're an adrenaline buff looking to get your pulse jumping and absorb yourself in the atmosphere. And maybe you're someone like me who just likes playing games with friends. GTFO is a cooperative experience I don't think any playgroup can pass up. A monster like this will chew you up and spit you out over and over again, but it's only scary until you bite it back.